order of the March Parks Commission. And we'll start with a request for a motion for approval of the minutes.
Looks like it's on there. Looks like it's my turn again, so I'll move approval of the minutes with one additional edit. I did, as I've done for a while now, sent my edits in advance, week and a half early to Scott, so that he would have them before the agenda is posted, because it looked like, you know, people in the commission liked that better than going through it in the meeting. There is one thing that was not caught, and the in this minutes, where it says number 2, approval of the minutes for January? Oh, yeah, okay. It should say Alder, this is January, right? Yeah. Okay, approval of the minutes for January. Alder Julia Radafrada moved to approve January minutes as written. Patrick Cheney second with one additional edit. Julia agreed. Motion carried. Well, yeah, that's what happened.
So, all right, are we okay with that,
That's,
Julia? That's all right?
well, no, this is editing the minutes
Okay, I'm
of our
sorry.
February meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That what kind of confused me too, is it's back to mentioning about the January minutes, but in the
Got it.
January minutes,
Okay,
that's what happened.
all right, very good. Those in favor of approval?
You get a second?
Oh, we did. I thought Chris did.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Those in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Public appearances for non-agenda items. Everybody's here for agenda items, so we'll move on to reviewing and approving our agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda, omitting 5C.
Omitting 5C? Why would you, there isn't a second, there's a motion to approve the agenda omitting item 5C.
I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. I can't see what 5C is, if somebody wouldn't mind saying.
That's the discussion of the McGaw property, park property.
Oh, thank you.
There isn't a second, but would you want anything you'd like to add?
If there's no second, then there's no discussion.
All right, okay. Then, so I will move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay. Those,
I make a motion to amend the agenda to remove 5C.
is there a second to that?
I just want to make a point of order. They're legitimate motions, so they go in the record.
Okay,
That's what I wanted.
okay. So the motion that is seconded is to review and approve the agenda as written. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 5A is our Stoner Prairie Park Plan approval. And I have quite a few people who've registered to either speak or just registered in support or opposition. So I want to make sure I've got these separated in the correct stack here.
It may be just a point of order. One, we, Stoner Prairie Park Plan approval, get a first and a second, and then
Sure,
we can begin
sure,
that
sure.
discussion.
Okay. I'll move to approve the Stoner Prairie Park Plan as it has been presented, drafted and presented to the community in February.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got Charles Christensen Phillips, who registered in support of the plan, and he did a 2-for-1. He's also registering in support of the next agenda item. So, thank you. Registering in support is Brittany Keller of Cornelia Street. And we can go with some of the people who wish to speak. And we have, I'll call up 2 at a time. And so our comments are limited to 3 minutes. And Alder Arata-Frada will track that. And if someone has mentioned something that you agree with and you're willing to just say you agree with such and such comments, and that might make the presentations a little bit more compressed. So I have...
Point of order for the record, Scott. The Park Commission has traditionally not held people to 3 minutes for speaking.
Well...
In the record. Just put it in the
Yeah.
record.
In the record, we have had some meetings where we've done 3 minutes because I've timed them. So
Give me a date. I'd like to know, because I don't remember.
I'll look that up for
Okay.
you. Okay?
Fine.
All right.
Scott can.
Sachin Tooley, Jody Schilling, if you will please come up.
Hello, good evening. Sachin Tooley from 2770 Evoke Drive. I'd like to request that the commission revisit the design. I think this process has been really difficult for the neighborhood because the process has been changed many times. Things were promised. There's a survey now in the documents for today that was a survey that was part of a broader survey effort because the definition of this park has also changed many times as being a community park, a neighborhood park, an area park. There's been many efforts, and I'm really flabbergasted, disappointed by the leadership of this Parks Commission as a whole with the constant changes that have been brought to us. We were originally told that it's our neighborhood park to come with a vision, and that will be affected since we are a neighborhood that has funded this park by and large. And I'm really proud of our neighbors who represent lots of community-minded folks who want to make their family home and made part of their decision to move to the neighborhood based on the design that's been standing for the park in long-standing city park plans. Now, in this course of this pandemic, the Parks Commission decided to change these plans and at the whim of seemingly just a few insiders, really redraft the vision for this park away from what many people throughout the process. But if you keep changing the plan, if you keep changing what people's are told that the process is going to be, if you invalidate a survey and then bring portions of that survey back, heavily redacted, but with 2 other neighborhoods' voices not shown, that is not democratic, and this needs to be revisited. This is a sham of a process. This is a sham of leadership.
Okay. I do agree with Sachin. My name is Jody Schilling, and I live in a lot right near the park. And I have 3 points to make. One has to do with the process. I also agree that this process started out as a democratic process, getting surveys from the neighborhood. But to have that many folks who are this upset about this, I really think that the process needs to stop now. It needs to start, and we need to have, it can be brief because we all want to move ahead with this park, but we need to stop where it's at, not vote on this tonight, and have a democratic process. Because everything that I've heard from multiple members of different neighborhoods and the Parks Commission is that everyone is trying to keep up with the will of possibly one person on the Parks Committee, and I think that that needs to be noted, and that this has no longer been a democratic process, and perhaps it needs to continue, and maybe even that person needs to recuse themselves from this committee for the sake of this parks discussion. So the process is not democratic, and if in fact it continues, I think the neighborhoods can keep fighting for the aspects of it. Obviously the shelter get built and other things, but this is not over and we can keep fighting for it. Second, Prairie. Again, I think that more people want Prairie than others, and more people don't want the prairie than people who are in support of the prairie. And I am all about prairie, but this is not the time or the park for it. And this is not the space for it, to divide up an area that families use. This is a family park. This is a family neighborhood. There's an elementary school there. There's a middle school there. And we all need to be able to continue to use the park. So I think there's a lot of folks that don't realize yet that the city's actually taking away park space that is currently being utilized for families to play. I watched them play kites. I watched them play little mini golf, play frisbee, all of that. And there are fields, but the fields are further down, and they are heavily utilized by, during the hours when families would want to use them, they're heavily utilized by, frisbee and soccer and lacrosse and all those other things. So we can't go to those fields during family time. So that's the only field that we have, and it's currently being used, and the city's about ready to take it away. So that needs to be evaluated. Also, safety. I love it that there's a lot of females that we walk our dogs around that loop to have a clear visibility that you can walk. In winter, it's dark starting at 5 o'clock. You can walk around there, clear sight lines. There's kids that walk to school in the morning, clear sight lines. The whole community can keep an eye on what's going on in that area, and it's been safe. I also want to have us look at, I know at the presentation they said that we have to think about animals that are going to be living in there and all of that. Do we really want those animals that close to our house? So safety and the animals coming off of that prairie. And then also my final point is equipment. At the presentation, they said the equipment would only be for 12 and under. There's a lot of middle schoolers, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, the middle schoolers are breaking the elementary school playground equipment constantly, breaking the windows and things like that. So equipment for 13 and above. Thank you.
I don't think I used my full 3 minutes initially, so I'll just echo what Jody said, and then I'd also like just add that the neighborhood, the initial concept shown to us, concepts 1 and 2, those are where we thought this committee would go. And we were promised a listening session to be held at the park this fall, and then that never materialized. So, when the city changes the process and changes their plan about how we're going to be invested in this process, then to then find out, oh, well, here's the master plan now. No one showed up at the meetings, here in this chamber this past fall. Well, we were told you were coming to us. So that is, also just another example of how this has been changed. None of the previous plans that were presented up until recently included the prairie. If you want to have some prairie and naturalized areas, make it on the periphery as the concepts 1 and 2 initially showed. Those can be border areas if you want to have some unmowed areas. But
the current toddler area.
The current toddler, make it a peripheral. But this is not going to be a prairie anyways. Let's be real. You're talking about naturalized areas that are not going to be native species. The parks does not have the money to really create a prairie, to do controlled burns, to do what a real prairie would. We would love to see a large-scale prairie in Fitchburg. This is not the place to install that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rebecca Hansen and Jackie Ziegler. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jackie Ziegler. I am speaking against and kind of echoing both what Sachin and Jody had said in terms of I think the committee should pause just based on the fact that we do want a park. However, it really seems that the process changed. And quite frankly, I'm actually a newer neighbor to the neighborhood. And when I first was looking for a house, I loved that Fitchburg is a small, tight community. I loved all the kids that were in the neighborhood. We drove there multiple different times when we were trying to build or looking into our house, and there were always kids outside. There are tons of kids in our neighborhood, and in first grade alone, there was 18 first graders from just our neighborhood. That's enough to fill a class. I'm a teacher. I'm telling you that's class. And yet, to not have a park in the neighborhood and be promised a park, when I was first building, the builder said, oh, our money is going towards this park. We're funding part of the park. It's going to be a great place. There's going to be a shelter. Here it is. And then to see different things going around where it's really confusing. And I think that's what they were pointing to as well, is this whole process has been really confusing as someone who it's directly impacting. And it's really frustrating that that's what it is. Because as a parent of two, I was really excited to have that. And I have prairie because I butt up to the church parking lot of Stoner Prairie. So I have a lot of prairie behind me that also connects to the other subdivision near us. And I have tons of animals coming into my yard, which with two smaller children don't really want. And how much more animals are going to come with all this additional prairie that was added in this last concept. So I just really think this committee, if you could pause and think and reconsider. I do want a park. Our neighborhood wants a park, but to change it so drastically and add so much and take away from the whole point of a park, which is to run and play, my kids have flown kites in that area. And like they've said, there are a lot of other organizations that use it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Rebecca Hansen. I live on Cornelius Street. I'm basically echoing what the others have said so far. The process has been frustrating, confusing, disappointing, poor to no communication. We had a meeting here, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and we had some really good conversations, and I think the neighborhood made some of our wishes really clear, and it seems like nothing came of that, so I'm not really sure what the point of that was. We had some really good talks, especially at the end, about maybe utilizing where the current toddler park is and making that area more where we focus the prairie versus, right on the edge of the park there where a lot of us, like you said, fly kites and things like that, myself included. I see people, cutting through those areas to walk to school, and so the prairies are not going to be maintained. They're going to be trampled. And I think the city has already acknowledged that, they don't have the resources to maintain prairies, even in the parks that currently have them. So I do like the plan. I like a lot of things about the plan. Don't get me wrong. And I do like that they moved the play equipment closer to where the bathrooms will eventually be. With young kids, being close to the bathroom is priority for me. So I'm not, I don't hate the plan as a whole, but I just think the placement of the prairie, some of it doesn't make much sense, and from what I've heard, the size of it and it being broken up is not beneficial anyway, as far as for wildlife and things like that. So those are things that it seems like weren't really thought through. And if you look at some of the prairie is, it cuts off the path to the toddler park. So are you expecting people to push their stroller through the prairie or go all the way up to the street to go back to the toddler park? And then once the other park is built, I don't see that toddler park being used anyway, because quite frankly, it's terrible. So, the other thought was just, get rid of that and make that kind of more the Serenity area over there. And so that was a really good conversation we were having at the end of the meeting last time that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. But yeah, other than that, I just kind of agree with everyone else. But we do appreciate the work that has gone into this, but I think it just needs, and we do want to get things moving, especially those of us with young kids that, we want to park while they're still young, but, yeah.
And sorry, just to add one more thing, I do feel like there's a lot more neighbors who would be here. However, at 6 o'clock, it's really hard when you, again,
kids, yeah.
There's a lot of middle schoolers, but there's also a ton of younger children, and
Dinner
it's hard.
time, bedtime, yeah, it's tough to get here at this time, exactly.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Thomas Sorensen and Brent Keller.
Sure. Thomas Sorensen. I concur with, I'm Thomas Sorensen, 2771 Evoke Drive, so I'm just a house off the park. I concur with all four of my neighbors that have spoken. We all know each other pretty well. I'm also opposed to the plan as currently presented. I prefer the what are they, Sachin plans 1 and 2, the older ones. Being as close as we are, I know there was an issue between my neighbor and the city already about a size of yard, the size of this table, that is naturalized prairie that is overgrown. It's not getting maintained. It gets full of garbage. It's already kind of a mess. I have had coyotes by the house. I think if we bring in, because we're on the edge, it was a farm field 4 years ago. We have seen coyotes there. I think with prairie, we'll bring in more little critters. I don't mind the prairie. I like the prairie. There's one at the park down the hill that kind of surrounds the 2 retention ponds. The prairie is cool. On the periphery, I think it would be neat. I think having as much as is in the current plan, I think Becca's right. Kids are going to trample it. I don't think it'll be maintained. I think the toddler park that's there now isn't being maintained. There's been a huge hole in one corner that fills up with water for the last 3 years. So I'm not super optimistic that the plan as currently presented will provide the benefit that we're all hoping for. We are excited for the park, have been for the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm excited that we're getting really close, but I don't care for the plan as presented currently.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brent Keller. I live at 2768 Cornelius Street, one of the two properties directly adjacent to the north side of the park. I'd like to register in support of the plan, including the prairie. I think the plan for the park has taken a diverse set of needs into account, and we're satisfied with the plan. I'd like to see the process move forward. Also, for the record, I'm not concerned about the animals. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one person registered to speak via Zoom, Matt Gross. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt Gross. Are you there? We're ready for you to speak. Okay. Nobody there? Okay. All right. There may be comments from various people, including Scott. So let's start with anything you. Yes.
Okay, you need
yes,
to
of
say
course.
that.
We're closing the comment section. And Scott, did you want to go ahead and say anything, or I can? Okay. I thank you, everybody, for registering your remarks, and I tried to bring notes myself to go over a little bit of the background as I experienced it, starting with the Parks Commission. The Parks Commission itself first saw or talked about beginning planning in October of 2020. And at that time, there was a plan presented by the neighbors, some of the neighbors from Stoner Prairie, but the Parks Commission then, in October of 2020, decided they did not want to go with that plan. And we talked between October and November, and that was when we moved ahead with pursuing an ad hoc committee. And that took quite a few months to come to pass. We met at the ad hoc committee level in April, May, and June, so there were 3 meetings that included representatives from 5 neighborhoods in this area. And the first meeting, that April meeting, we didn't make any decisions. So we met in May and June, and the big focus was on the survey, creating survey, which was done. And once the survey was done, the mayor disbanded the committee and charged that the planning from that point would come to this body. So that's what occurred to that end. As best I counted, there are in the 5 neighborhoods, because it's an area park, it serves all the subdivisions or development areas within a half-mile radius, and there are 5 of them. There's Stoner Prairie, Lacey Heights, Crescent Crossing, Seminole Forest, and Wildwood, and so there's 986 homes, give or take. So when we talked about planning, we talked about the fact that we have a comprehensive plan for the Parks and Open Space Plan that guides our planning, and we have to meet the needs of 986 households, or try to think about what type of a plan stands the test of time, because all of us at some point won't be around or living here, but the park will be there and homes will be there. So does the plan stand the test of time? So those are some of the things that we that we thought about as we got started. And then just some stats on the park size. It's 10.4 acres, and that's not including the separate little parcels that are owned by Public Works where there will likely be restrooms. So the park itself is 10.4 acres. And it's, everybody talks about it's divided into a north and a south half. And the south half and the little node that's east on Scarlet Drive, east of the paved path, have been in the park system since the 1990s, early to mid-90s. The large parcel that is south of the paved path, where there's league play at some points, is 5.59 acres. And the little park node up in the corner is just over 1 acre. So the area north of the path, which is all the areas that came into development with the new development, is 4.84 acres, but that is including the 1 acre. So 3.8 acres came in with the developments of Stoner Prairie and Crescent Crossing. And then there's the 1.4 acres that was the original Lacey Heights neighborhood park, Stoner Prairie Park. So I checked with the park designer about the amount of prairie, and that is 1.9 acres. And that's including everything from the little park node all along Scarlet Drive in the new areas of the park. So that leaves 3 acres that is not prairie north on the north half of the park. So for the 3 acres, then there is space for playground equipment, a shelter, although we aren't sure yet if the shelter is going to be exclusively in the park. Will there be part of it or all of it attached to the building in that little node off to the side that Public Works owns? A basketball court, and there is mowed area there for flex play. So when a plan like this is conceived, it is showing us park elements. And so, there was a person who provided input about that we show boulders encroaching out into mowed space. And that does work against if someone wants to play there. We can adjust where boulders are, we can decide where the trees go, and we can do things to try to accommodate some of the concerns. But we do, others can speak for how they feel about it, but those are just sort of background facts that I hope answer some of it. The other point to make is about plans 1 and 2. Those show all the play activity close to Scarlet Drive in the far east end. And that area is actually, of all the park space, that is the farthest away from the restrooms. And so that's the main driver for moving all the play equipment to the restrooms. So I hope that provides some background and information. I know it doesn't make everybody happy. And if there's anyone else who has information to share, please do.
A question. You were talking about the acreage there. Do you have, I think you said 10 point something or other acres for the whole park? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you would have this number if the Public Works building with the presumed restrooms are included. Would you have an absolute total number for all?
Well,
you can ask
I had it here. It's,
I don't know if we know how large.
The Public Works parcel is 0.46 acres.
Okay.
So if you add that together, you've got 10.86 acres.
10 what?
10.86.
86. Okay, that's what I was getting at.
So but it's not really parkland, although there may be a shared use, and it's contiguous.
There's a precedent for that because the Huel Jamestown shelter is part Public Works pumping, or not pumping station, it's a water control station in Huel Jamestown Park. Right. So then, based on 10.8 acres, you said, approximately. There was a small point made that I want to know. Was this ever, Scott or anybody, considered as a community park, or was it always a neighborhood park or several neighborhood parks that were then combined, and when it grew and it will serve a large area, then we, yes, I know, did amend it to be an area park, but was it ever even considered as a community park?
Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of, Patrick.
Right, and that's my point, because to be considered as as a community park, it has to have some special, unique qualities, features, and such, which this one doesn't have. I think there's a minimum acreage for a community park also, and at 10.8, offhand, it doesn't sound like that, like it would meet that.
No,
Okay.
no. Any other questions or comments?
So, I came to this design of the park maybe when it was moved to the Park Commission. So I don't know the whole history when all the neighborhoods start working with that. But, one thing that I want to mention is when people mention that we are making drastic changes from concept 1, 2, and the final master plan that this body discussed, I don't think that is drastic change. And I think practically most of you or people that are against this park are against the prairie. They want to have a bigger open space in the center. That's it. But the rest of I think that everyone agrees that the shelter and the basketball court and all of that, the location is close to the future restroom that the city plans to build. This is the ideal location. So the question is that what we need to rethink about if, I really like the prairies, but I think if, I don't know what the other, you, Chris, that you're an expert on this, I don't know if, if we can open a little bit more of that prairie and allow a little bit more of space, or people really don't want to see the prairie. The prairie I think the prairie are going to be a nice buffer from the street to the park. I think it provides like a safe feature if you have a small kid. I live 2 blocks away from the McKee Farm Park. Practically my kid, we're playing in that park for 15 years. So, and I think the feature for this, I don't know, I really like the prairies, but I want this park to be built this year, okay? I don't want to see this park anymore here. We need to move forward, it's time. So maybe I can ask my fellow commissioner if they are, they are flexible to see if we can reduce the size of the prairie a little bit more so there are more green space. I can, not to remove it, but maybe reduce a little bit the size so we can, everyone compromise, because I really like this plan, but I am willing to compromise a little bit. If Chris, you're the expert, I want to know, what do you think?
Yeah, I certainly think that there is. I don't think anybody up here is married to this plan. We want it to be successful, and that's the only thing that we're concerned with. But the struggle is that we have to try to accommodate sort of very diverse needs. We need to work within the budget that we have for this park, which is not enormous. It's it's something to work with, but it's not enormous. And we also have to think about the whole surrounding area in our park's goals, how we want to change our park system and how we want to improve our park system. Frankly, we have enough lawn in our park system, and we need something that is different than that. And there are people in our community that want their park spaces to function as more than a soccer field. We've gotten feedback that says as much, and that's the way we've developed our parks comprehensive plan. So, and that's something that we really felt that this park was a good opportunity to do, because we have the amount of space we have. 10 acres is a lot of space. So, and there was desire for some more naturalized areas in this park. So, to do that, it's best if they can be as contiguous as possible, not chopped up into small areas. So that is one reason that putting them just around the perimeters we didn't feel would have been successful, because the prairies they get infiltrated by weeds. They don't have that ability to thrive and create the communities that they're meant to do. So we need relatively large areas of contiguous space. And so that was one limitation. Putting it down into the southern part of the park, which initially seemed appealing, well, where our land ends, that area spills out into the Savannah Oaks property. And right now, that big open space is, when it's used, that lawn is, even though it's two different property owners, it's used as one space. Most folks, I didn't know, most folks probably didn't know that that's not all the park, that it's two different properties. But it functions as one space. So that big open area, if we were to put the prairie in the southern part of the park space, then we'd be dividing that up and chopping it in half. And so then that eliminates that big open turf space, that flexible open turf space. So that we didn't feel like that was appropriate. That basically leaves north of the asphalt path. And the little area off to the east, where the little toddler play area is, that certainly has potential, but the toddler play area is intended to remain. So for that to stay there, we couldn't fill the whole place with prairie. As much as some of us sort of thought that could be a good idea, we just don't have the budget to remove the toddler play area. So that kind of had to stay there. Otherwise, we'd lose that amenity. And so that kind of left that L-shaped space where the prairie is shown now as kind of the only viable option without sacrificing something else in the plan. And that's why we landed on that. I think that, it certainly has the opportunity that it can shift and more turf space can open up. That comes as a trade-off. We lose that prairie space then, and the amenities that provides. But it's a trade-off that we can discuss making. I don't consider it a worthwhile trade-off myself. I have a hard time justifying removing that unique feature for something as ubiquitous as more lawn. And I understand that a lot of folks want to have that open play space. And I don't disagree with that. But I think that we're providing ample open play space in this plan. There is the 5 acres of lawn to the south of the asphalt walk, and I get the concern that may not be, if there's a programmed activity happening there like Ultimate Frisbee or something like that, then that may be not usable at the time that you want to use it. So I understand that concern. But on the other hand, we're also still keeping, it's a not insignificant amount of grass space north of that path between the basketball court and the playground. So, I don't think it's a worthwhile trade-off, but others are certainly welcome to disagree, and they clearly do. Somebody made a comment about the play equipment. We wholeheartedly agree with you. We want, when it comes time to select play equipment for this park, we want it to be interesting. We want it to be something fun, cool, unique, different. Heard you loud and clear, and we 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead with your question, and then after that, Heidi is
Oh, okay.
waiting to speak.
So, do you know how big is the space between the basketball court and the shelter? Do you know that, Chris?
I don't know.
Okay.
It looks like it's maybe 60 feet by 80 feet if you ignore the tree arch, something like that.
Yeah, and one of the things Chris mentioned, and Heidi, I see you, I will get to you, about the toddler play equipment. I feel like there was, on behalf of the commission, I thought that once that's deteriorated and gone, it would not be replaced. And that then at the last meeting we had with EOR, we talked about making sure we had the 2 to 3 year old toddler equipment in the new section. So if that's something we can do, that starts to open up possibilities to reconfigure a little bit too. So Heidi, go ahead.
Thanks, Sue. I just wanted to sort of agree with some of what Chris said, given the fact that, we have the constraints of a budget to work within, as well as the fact that there are there's a very numerous amount of diverse opinions, diverse amount of people that, want one thing and then another group wants something else. And it's in taking all of that into account, it's really hard to be all things to all people. And the other thing to remember too is that the way a park starts out doesn't necessarily mean that it can't grow to be other things. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the prairie either. I think prairies are very expensive. I think they serve a wonderful purpose, but in a park where, kids should be running in the grass and playing and all of that, I'm not sure a prairie is the best idea. But, I guess there's people that maybe know much more about the outdoors than I do. But I would just, again, suggest, it's great to have parks with all the bells and whistles, but my understanding and my belief is that not all parks that have the bells and whistles started out that way. Over the course of time, things got added, and that's something that can certainly be done here as well. My final comment regarding the play equipment, I know there were several parents that mentioned wanting equipment for the older children. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but my concern is that if the middle school equipment is getting destroyed, I don't know how adding equipment for the older kids is going to change anything. I think that if there's a destructive force, it's going to be a destructive force. I don't think, you can't really say it's always the big kids. I don't know. I'm not sure what sort of play equipment you could even get to accommodate the older kids. I feel like maybe that's what the basketball courts and the soccer fields and I don't know, baseball, something like that is for. But I think this looks like a wonderful park. I think it has a lot of potential. And I guess, I wouldn't mind having more discussion about it and getting more community's opinion and all of that. But again, I just want to caution people, this can't be all things to all people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Scott, did you have any summary of other letters you received or emails about?
Not offhand. I circulated all the information
Okay.
that I received to the Park Commission.
Okay. Now, I also checked with old notes. I was getting long-winded earlier, so I wasn't reading you all my notes, but since we're on the topic of the Ultimate Frisbee is the current user of fields here. They, in the fair weather, they play generally Monday through Thursday evenings. And there was a separate group pre-COVID that did a couple of weekend tournaments, but it's generally 2 time periods I didn't write down the exact time periods, but it's an early shift and then sometimes a later shift that'll play. But when it's the later shift, you're down to use of one field. So 2 fields and 1 field were often used this last summer. There were times when there were 4. So it's been a little bit of everything. But the other thing we took into consideration when making all of these plans is looking at all the open and green space that is also being mowed on the 2 school properties. And one of our focus is as a Parks Commission, to have the variety of topography, and that's where the natural plantings come in. And the bonus of it is also educational, and it is also reducing mowing and pollution costs to mow 10.5 acres that is surrounded by as much or more mowed grass on the school properties. So those are a few other things we talked about as we planned. If we, now I want the Parks Commissioners to weigh in on this idea. If we did move the toddler area along with the new equipment when it comes in or whenever close to where everything else is slated to be, and that we're filled in with natural plantings, and then the basketball court was moved east, and where the basketball court is would be more open grass. That seems to address a few things, but I would like to know others' opinions of what I just said.
I just wrote down basically that same thing as a comment to myself, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I want to clarify some points that some of you made, and I think they are unfair to us. This body, we held several meetings talking about this park in this space, so we're a public. So we never hide anything, when we discuss this, when we were discussing the planning of this final master plan. And second, I think the city does a very good job with the resources that we have to maintain our parks and our prairie. So, and I think if we are going to plant prairie there, we are going to take care of the prairie. So, because we are doing a good job maintaining our parks. So, if you disagree with me, I respect that. With the resources that we have, with the limited resources that we have, I think the park department doing a great job of maintaining. I don't know how many parks it's called because every year we add 2 or 3 new parks to the city, and we keep the same amount of resources. So, so that one. And the other thing I want to mention, this is a park for all, okay? It's for family, for a small kid, and also for grown up. So because I had a discussion with some of your neighbors that told me this is a kid park. No, it's not a kid park. It's a park for all. So we need to also incorporate all the view of every age and demographic in the park too. So this is what we try to, I think this is what we came out with this master plan. And, I am open to move all the prairie to the other side and open a little bit more that, but I would like to keep prairie and native plants. Because one of the goals of the city is to be, to start doing a better effort in conservation, protecting our environment and our land. And I think we need to incorporate that in our plans. When we design parks, neighborhood, we have to incorporate that concept. So, and I want to keep that. I don't want to, like you mentioned, we can be flexible. We can be, incorporate your ideas, but also how we can keep that conservation effort that we want to incorporate in this park.
I agree with that. I think that if there are things that we can do to help alleviate some of the concerns that we've heard tonight, I think that, we can find a way to do that. I will not support removing the prairie from the park, but I would completely support finding a way to make it work in a way more appropriate with the uses that we're hearing we need to see in the space.
Heidi?
Thanks, Sue. I just wanted to chime in. I really like what you said about, the prairie, making it more educational. I don't know, even maybe more conservancy, like where, there could be trails that have little educational QR codes or something to talk about the flowers or the plants that are there. I think that would be a wonderful use for the prairie if that goes forward. Thank you.
Okay. So Scott, a question I have is, if we came to some agreement here if the others agree with the idea of doing what I and Chris also suggested, is shifting the basketball court east, and then making sure that the entire 1.04 acres east of the school path is then reverted to natural plantings. Then the space between the basketball court, once it's moved, is a free play place. If we state these things in an amended motion, does it require EOR to redraw?
No, it wouldn't, Sue.
Okay.
The next step would be to, hire someone to do the final design and construction documents and those kinds of things. So we can certainly take the amendment, if that's what the Park Commission wants to do, and share that with that group, and then they would design the park accordingly. So, and I guess I would offer, certainly the playground to the east is maybe a bit older, but it's not unsafe, and I guess I'd like to try and get as many years as we could out of that, but certainly once it's removed, then we could, work to convert it to more of a natural area.
Well, right, that's true, but as it's shown there, if we're going to economize on what it takes to install and maintain that undulating form of the natural area in that section is more difficult. So if we can come up with some...
And not to interrupt you, but maybe that's that area in the interest of keeping green space stays as green, but then once the playground is removed, then at that time it's converted to that natural area.
Yeah, I would just rather see more of it filled in, and it can still be mowed around the play space and be clear enough so that people in there using it still have clear sight lines here and there. And that reminds me, I wanted to mention something about the concern about sight lines. When you look at the school prairie that is close to Lacey Road, that's sometimes referred to as a tall grass prairie, and you have plants in there that are some of them 10 feet tall. And you can have a mix, and Chris can tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I've learned on my own, there are things called a short grass mix, and it's not just grass, but the intended height of the plants, save for a few flowers that pop up at this time of year or some other time of year, it's a lower profile that we could talk about with the engineer and with our city naturalist in consideration of sight lines. Anything?
Yeah, you can tailor the plant mix to be in the 3 to 4 foot range or the 5 to 7 foot range. If height is a concern for safety, then I think that's very reasonable. You can choose species that are still appropriate for the site, but aren't going to be very tall. And one thing I thought of that I would just say, we shouldn't think of the prairie as a grown-up only space. Like, the prairie is its own play space. Like, we want to provide trails and pathways in that prairie, as we're showing here, to a limited extent, because we don't want to chop it up. But also, I think it's okay if kids are going in there and playing. Think of all the cool things that they can find and explore. I mean, the adventures that they can have. They're going to find new bugs and new plants that they've never seen before. And they're going to have experiences in that prairie that they are never going to have on a playground set, you know, on a swing set. So, I mean, I just, that's where I would be if I was a kid. It's where I'd probably be now, too.
Yeah. Patrick?
The more this conversation goes on, the more I'm convinced this plan is not ready. I see the most contentious item here is the prairie. I've been listening to all the people, emails and speakers at the February 8th meeting about this, and I'd hear several people talk one side, prairie, not prairie, and I'd say, okay, maybe it should go that way. Then I'd hear a flurry of other people go the other way. I live on the east side of Fitchburg, so I am very interested in the people who live right around Stoner Prairie Park here and what they think about it. But unfortunately, in some ways, we're in the position where we have to vote on this. And as far as the prairie, which I think is the top issue, we're between yes, all of this prairie, or no, almost no prairie. I would agree with, it doesn't sound like it works to divide it up and have strips around the outer edges, the west edge or something like that. Small chopped up areas of prairie apparently don't work. I think of examples of prairie that I know of. McKee Park has a large prairie in the middle. I don't walk through it. As far as I could describe it, the way I see it, it's a large tall grass field. I just don't see the value in that. I do have experience with prairies. I've volunteered for 20 years with Dane County Parks, burning prairies, and Dane County Parks collect seeds, spread seeds. I've done some of that too. And they need a lot of work. I'm very leery of taking a mowed lawn area here, and I presume maybe not plowing it up, but disking it up, something or other, killing off the grass, or I don't know, maybe just letting that existing grass grow up and then throw seeds in there and burn it. That's a problem for houses nearby. And develop it into a prairie. Prairies need a lot of work in order to develop them, and I'm leery of how that's going to work out here. Now, and then our conversation has gone on to maybe we should move the basketball, maybe we should move the toddler playground. What about the line of trees going around there? More and more things are being suggested, being changed here. I don't think this is the meeting right here to make a final decision on this. The other problem, as I see it, and I've seen this on many other plans, not to pick on EOR, but I see this all the time, developers, it could be apartment developers, it could be any developers. They go through several steps, they map something out, they bring it, they show you what the plan is. They really like you to pass that plan right then in that meeting so they don't have to change things around. So I would not agree with, don't worry about what this is, we'll just change the build plans to something else and just move things all around when we get ready to build it next whatever week, next month, whatever. I would like to see a nice picture of what it looks like and get a lot of people to agree with, yeah, that looks good, before we approve that plan. So I think it still needs work. And of all the people that I've heard from, I say, some people say yes, prairie, some people say no prairie. I guess all in all, listening to all of them, I'm more and more leaning to basically removing the prairie, unless we can, do something here to make it fit better. A little bit of, some of you were at the February 8th meeting. After the end of the meeting, pretty much, when the camera stopped and everything, so it's not on the video, I did ask some people, and I see some of them here, what could be done here to make this more appealable? And I threw out, just to see reaction and everything, what about a line of trees along that northern border of it? because some of it sounded to me like screening from the houses to the north. And with a prairie, you need a long, large area to make a buffer to the houses to the north. Well, trees can make that kind of a buffer. Sometimes that works better or something, and it doesn't then need whatever, according to the scale, about 100 feet or so of prairie area. That sounded like it had some interest. I'm not, trying to push that as a vote or something like that. I just threw out ideas, just
Well,
see what would happen.
trees-
So I don't know if that's,
Yeah, the tree configuration would be something between EOR and our naturalist, and the budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Determines
Sure.
what we would do, but is there anything
Well-
else? Because I would we do need to vote.
I think we need to listen to more ideas and come up with another concept or so before we vote on this.
Right. Well, I'm going to amend my motion to approve the Stoner Prairie Park Master Plan with the changes that we discussed, which is shifting the basketball court east, making the toddler play area a part of the play area close to the restrooms with the rest of the play equipment. We can leave that the older stuff in there till it's ready to go, but at the same time, we're losing native plantings by shifting the basketball court over, so we will try to fill in a bit more of that node. And, yeah, the basketball court goes east.
Goes where?
East, over to the path near the school. Also, we would look again when we get into our next phase of exactly where we have rocks and trees shown around the playground area, so that there's a more clear field space on that north side. Is that everything we talked about? I think it is.
I have a process question. Can people talk for a second time or no? Are you allowed that or no? Oh, no, we cannot go in
No,
that argument. If you
No,
want to bring something new,
generally,
yes.
no.
Let it be noted that there are citizens who would like to speak that have not been able to respond to the comments.
Okay.
Mike,
Did you have the second? You had the second.
I can second.
Okay, go ahead, Patrick, you had one.
even with the changes that you're speaking of right there, moving things around, I would really like to see
We will.
a picture of that
We'll see.
before we vote on approving it.
No. It'll just be at the next.
I know, that's kind of the trouble, as I said, is EOR would not want to do things, although it's just, artwork, basically. Shifting things around on whatever their software is. But they tend to not like to do that. They want, we had the February 8th meeting. I don't know if anybody can point to anything on this plan that has changed after any of the comments from the February 8th meeting.
That was that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here today. Okay. You had the second, Julia? Chris did?
Well, if you say so, I was just going to say, because this master plan is the document that's going to guide the construction documents, I am a little worried that if this plan isn't updated to reflect these changes that we're saying, that it could get lost in translation, and we'll all know what we're looking for, but if it gets missed, then there are going to be a lot of very unhappier people. So I'm inclined to agree with Patrick that the master plan should be updated before we approve it. I would be more comfortable with that myself as well.
Okay,
If it was changed to reflect the things that we discussed,
correct.
not a wholesale revision, but these things that we just listed tonight. As much as I hate to delay this continuous process, I think that is the smarter course of action. So that's what I would like to see as well.
Heidi and I have our hands up.
I see Heidi there, and then we'll go back
Okay.
to Heidi.
I was just going to agree with Patrick and Chris. I don't think it hurts to wait one more month just to see our updates in there and then put it through to a final vote. And then we all know we're on the same page.
Okay, and so, right, very good. That's a process question, so it really wouldn't change the motion I made, I don't think. We're approving it with these changes, and we know it comes back to us for final approval. Okay, Patrick.
Well, again, yeah, I really want to see it before I vote on it.
Well, we're,
To the vote, Patrick, is that what you're after, or?
I'm trying to figure out what I wanted to say. I don't know.
go ahead, Julia.
Okay, so we are deciding that we are going to make those recommendations to change the master plan and then come back to us when, I don't know, it's got to go to the architect again?
Commission next month for approval.
But who is going to design, who is going to
Well,
read?
I'm gonna hopefully be able to spend some.
You're going to do it, or you're going to send it?
No,
Okay.
If I do it, I'm just gonna draw.
Okay. Okay, so.
I guess that's my question.
No
is,
question, well, I am talking.
I'll ask.
So my question is, you're sending back this master plan with our recommendation to
EOR.
EOR, and then it come back to us with the master plan, whatever, with the changes. But we are gonna keep the prairie,
Yep, we're gonna
accommodate the basketball court, and, okay, I want to be sure, because,
move the basketball court,
Okay.
do some things with the rocks.
so I think this is a compromise that we can do. Yeah, she wants to know when we decided to move from concept 1, 2, and we add all the prairie. I think we discussed
Well, we
that in
did,
multiple meetings.
It was in July. No. No, these.
I have
If
them.
I might.
Go ahead.
Yep.
I have the minutes here, but
Yeah, this
go
is,
ahead.
the process that we went through is that we did the survey, and concept 1 and concept 2 was the results. They put together the survey results, and then these were the draft plans that they came up with. And then we worked with the Park Commission, I believe, two sessions to come to the final master plan, which is this one.
Yeah,
And then we presented this one at February 8th for
Yeah.
open house and public comments, and
If you could scroll back up a bit, Scott.
it was May that we saw these designs, and we talked about both of those at the May meeting and decided against them that meeting.
Yeah, and it's hard to read the labels on this screen, but the sort of lighter green areas around the perimeter of the park, those are intended to be prairie. Yeah, and that was sort of at our direction from the reasons that we kind of talked about earlier tonight, that
it's hard to maintain.
the prairie as a perimeter like that, we felt would be harder to maintain because it has more edge conditions. The more edges you have, it's a constant battle between prairie and turf. And they're narrow, so you don't get to establish the community in the way you would with a bigger, broad area. So, but
That is the compromise I think we can reach, because, as Patrick is saying, it's not going to be prairie anyway.
well, I disagree.
All right, and this is a deliberation of this body, so I'm sorry, but we we're telling you how we came to the conclusions we did. And so it's not a good plan to have small little pieces of prairie plants going around a mowed space. That's more of a recipe for failure. And so that is why in May, we came up with pretty much this, but we also talked about it in July and September to come to what we have here now.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yeah, the one question I would ask is, are we confident that EOR would be willing to redraw this? And then another thing that I was looking at before here is in the survey question, and I don't know of the timing of that survey. I think that survey was quite a while ago. I looked through all those questions, and there is nothing in any of those questions about, would you like a prairie? So that was not surveyed.
The Stoner Prairie portion of the survey, because there was that was in response to an email that I received that, we weren't aware of it, and there's nobody in the neighborhood that was in favor of the natural area. So that's why I included it in the.
Included what?
Well,
Chris?
I mean, where do we have the support for this prairie? I
Yeah.
kind of agree between concept 1 and 2. I do agree that a prairie around the edge broken up in little pieces doesn't work. So along the way somewhere, we decided to make a whole big area of prairie at the north and somewhat to the east of the basketball.
Well, I
thing.
can
So
explain.
that's how we got all of that.
One part of it is the survey was people working hard to come up with questions that would provide useful information, which it did. But we also, as a body, had additional criteria to apply to the project. The natural spaces, our Parks and Open Space Plan has the seams, solitude, and socializing. Our need for managing stormwater on site, reducing mowing, and there is, even though the survey questions that are included in our packet is strictly how Stoner Prairie folks answered it, there's one page in here, quiet enjoyment of park areas. It says trees, shrubs, planting beds, and naturalized areas. That's in our packet, page 36. And the highest number of responses was completely in favor of that. So there was support, and since that time, the communities have grown. So again, we're looking at a plan, what stands the test of time, and we feel this meets needs that are required of us to think about, that come to us through the documents that inform us. It's the Parks and Open Space Plan in the city's comprehensive plan. Go ahead.
On that question right there, I don't like questions that are kind of rolled so many things together that it's hard to vote against it. Quiet enjoyment of park areas, parentheses, trees, shrubs, planting beds, and natural areas. You look at something or other that catches your interest, who's going to vote against trees?
Well, all right, this
But
was
actually,
but
at the
it's,
draft bars
Patrick,
right
we're
there,
not going to
there's a lot of
redo
them
it. Patrick,
on
we're
0,
not
1, and
redoing
2.
a survey. We're not redoing a survey.
I called to the order to this meeting.
I'm just looking for support.
I called to the order of this meeting.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Let's vote what we have in.
Yeah, we have,
We are not going to go to the
we're
survey.
not, we're doing a survey. Heidi has a comment, and then we're going to vote. We'll make sure that what the motion reads to reflect what we've talked about here in the way of compromising. Go ahead, Heidi.
Well, I realize I can't make a motion because the other motion hasn't been voted on, but my thoughts is that there's so many unanswered questions. I feel rather than voting, we should table this until the draft comes back with the suggestions that we've had, and then put it back on the agenda for action. Because if we are voting to approve something with the changes, but we haven't actually seen the changes, it seems a little backwards to me. So I guess that's my thought, is we should consider tabling it.
Is that a motion, Heidi?
Julia.
Well, I can't make a motion because the previous motion has been seconded and hasn't been voted on yet. But it will be if the other motion gets voted down.
I'm going to
thank you for-
suggest that a motion to table could override.
Thank you for your comment, Heidi, and Julia has a remark.
So what we are voting here is recommendation. So we are not voting for the master plan. We are adding some recommendation to the plan. So this is different. So we are
Right,
trying
it
to
has
say,
the word approve. It
yeah,
has the word approve.
We had to Park Commission has to approve those recommendations so we can send it to the architect so they can design the new changes and incorporate it in the new plan. So we have to do that. Otherwise, Scott cannot send this recommendation to the architect to do this because he needs our approval. This is what we're doing. We are recommending some changes in the plan to be done by the architect.
Right, but then I think the motion needs to
Yeah.
be changed. It can't say to approve the master plan. I think the motion then needs to say that we recommend that it goes back to the architect with the changes that have been brought on and then brought back to the commission.
You could make that motion, an amendment.
I can clarify the motion that I made or make a change to it, because I had started out by stating approving the plan. So I'm going to amend my motion to submit the compromises that we have discussed tonight, and Scott's got the list, right?
Yep.
So that it can be redrawn to come back to this committee for review, for approval, when it's available, because we don't know if it'll be next month or perhaps the subsequent
We'll
month.
work towards that.
Thank you, Sue. I apologize. I don't mean to be so picky, but I just think we need to be specific so that we're transparent with the public.
That was the intent, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's the intent that I had, and so if stating it that way makes it more clear for everybody, that's okay. So okay, do I need a second on this restated motion?
Yeah, second.
Okay, so those in favor of the motion,
I do have my hand up.
you make one more comment, but then we need to vote.
All I wanted to say is I agree with the point that Chris made, that I want to see it, and I don't trust, as Chris said, that we can just count on, okay, this, but we're counting on them to remember the changes. So
But
yes, I'll go along with this amended
Correct.
part here.
So that what we're doing, it will come back here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
So Julia, you seconded that, the final motion that you made, Sue? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask, can you state really nice and clearly what we are proposing for how we want EOR to redraw the prairie?
I will. What we said was where you see the basketball court there, it's going to go all the way east to the path, to the school line, and that's on this drawing, that's to the right. So then there's no prairie there.
Right.
Where the toddler play lot is in the far upper right corner of the park, that's the old existing play equipment that once its useful life is completely gone, it's going to be gone and nothing will replace it. And in the meantime, where you see some natural plantings there, we'll flesh that out more, yet it's not going to be 100% prairie with a little old toddler lot trying to poke its nose up through there. And new toddler equipment will be included with all the play equipment that goes on the west side of the park, which is to the left, close to where the shelter is.
Whereabouts around the shelter?
Well, where all the
place
other
in
play
mind?
equipment is shown in sort of that yellow dotted line that, and there's the arc of the rocks and the trees where Scott's got the cursor. That's all play equipment there. So there'll be toddler equipment in there, which is what, part of what we were going to do anyway, but we had this old spot and new spot. So we've clarified they'll be there because the toddlers need access to the bathroom more than any other age group. Okay, so,
Okay.
You good?
yes, now we are on, buried my agenda copy here. 5B, Crescent Crossing Outlot 11 Dog Playground Approval. And just to refresh our memories here, we had somebody here speaking in favor of that as well, right? You're just registering approval? Okay.
Who is that?
I've got so many sheets here. You're going to make me go through them and find his name.
Thanks, Charlie.
The video does not reflect that.
I've got it. Of course, I had it at the bottom of the stack. Charles Christensen Phillips of 5917 Minong Lane is also registering in support of this agenda item 5B. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, Scott, what do you want to tell us?
This is, as Crescent Crossing continues to develop, and as you recall, they did install the fence at the dog playground in the fall, actually. So now what they're doing is they're moving on to bid or actually to install the amenities, the park playground amenities. What they did do is similar to the process that they did with the fence, is they publicly bid it through the same rules and regulations that we have. I apologize that, I wasn't able to send you the information until shortly ago that they did receive bids. They received 3 bids, and they're recommending Mole. Let me get to it so I make sure. And I included the agreement in there. And here is the recommendation from Matt and Diafrio that they're recommending Mole Construction. They were the lowest bidder. And what we also wanted to make sure is that they stayed within the budget amount indicated in the agreement. And they are a little bit above, but they did suggest, which I think we can work with the landscaping and some other reductions in order to meet that requirement that we have within their agreement. So what I'm really doing tonight is getting that to you and making sure that you're good with that, and then we'll work with Diafrio to make sure that it falls within that budget amount plus 10%, and then I will draft a resolution and a referral and get that to the council probably on the 28th of March, and then it'll come back to the Park Commission in April with final approval by the Finance Committee and the council on the 11th of April.
Any other questions? Any questions, Patrick?
Yes.
Scott, you added 2 pages to the packet. What are those 2-page numbers?
Those are pages 64, and 65, which is the memo from
Okay.
from them that they indicated they received 3 bids, and the lowest bid was $102,815, and they feel that it's good. Those are good prices, but certainly realize that they need to work with the scope to get within the budget allotment that's included in the agreement that we have.
Okay, I just want to note for this commission that was sent out within an hour before this meeting. I did happen to see it. Usually I would not, and I don't know if everyone else saw that or so I just kind of want to recommend on things like this that are last minute that, well, I don't know, there needs to be a solution to that. Either you bring printed copies to the commission meeting, but then some people are on Zoom, so that doesn't, include. So there's a problem with things coming in. We see it here, we're acknowledging it. Last minute things might not be seen by everybody, so just
And I
any topic
understand.
like this, make sure
Right.
that everybody is aware.
Yeah, it was a tight schedule for them. I did want to make sure that I sent this, and when I sent the agenda comments out, I kind of referenced that there's going to be some additional information on the way, specifically the bid and those kinds of things. And I was able to update the webpage and the packet and all, but certainly it was.
But that again was
this
within an
afternoon.
hour before this meeting, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Chris, did you have something you were? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I saw. Any other comments? Okay. Well, we have the motion.
Well, I guess just one question. I think you just said this, but just to clarify, as I read in their thing that they sent, that you sent out before the meeting, they are reducing something or other to stay within the budget. In other words, they were credited with an amount, and they said in there they're staying within that amount by reducing something.
And they're fully aware that those are the rules that have
Yeah.
been set for them to play under. So they realize that, and we're going to work to make sure that we follow those approved rules, if you would.
Otherwise, just on the idea right here, if they somehow wanted to spend money, extra money, it's their money.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They're working to receive the parkland improvement credits, so they want to stay within those parameters to receive them.
Okay, we have our motion and second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the approval of the Crescent Crossing Outlot Playground, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries? It carries? Okay, we are on 5C, the McGaw Park Trail Expansion. And opening up with a motion to approve, I will say, I move to approve the recommendation of park staff with clarification. I move to approve the recommendation of park staff with clarification that the width of said maintenance on walking paths shall be 10 to 12 feet for the park mowers to make 2 passes, along with discussion action at the March meeting to add trail connection to the north and existing trail. Is there a second? Second. Okay. So Patrick has handed me some more things, and I have a couple of folks who do wish to speak. So we're going to have a citizen comment and we'll ask Nancy Halford and David Halford to please come to speak on this item.
So could I ask you to reread the motion? I didn't quite get all of the conditions and clarifications.
Sure, and then also, once we discuss it, more of it'll be sort of clear. But it is to approve the recommendation of the park staff with clarification that the width of maintenance on walking paths shall be 10 to 12 feet wide for the parks mowers to make 2 passes, along with and add that the Pink Trail connection will continue to the north and connect with an existing trail.
Well,
Go ahead.
if I might, the Park Commission actually last month approved to widen the current trails to the 10 to 12 feet. And then they asked to include, for the March agenda, the idea of the extension of the Pink Trail to the north, so that, the 10 to 12 for the existing paths has been approved. And so what we're really acting on tonight is whether we're going to continue that pink path to the north.
Okay. So,
Point, I would actually agree with that. This is about keeping this as an existing permanent trail. The thing about widening the trails, that was February.
okay, all right, that's fine. When you and I talked in advance of the meeting, but this was a couple days ago, one of the questions I asked as if we were restating the entire motion, and I may have misunderstood that. So
We're
here
on the
now.
right, we're on the right track now.
we're here now. Okay, go ahead.
So what you're planning to do is to extend the logging trail that was made to get at the dangerous trees. Is that correct?
That's correct, to continue that to the north to connect to the existing trail that's there, exactly.
Along the property lines?
No, we're definitely going to stay as far away from the property line as we possibly can.
Okay, so did you have remarks you wanted to make that are prepared, or?
Nothing prepared, no. We would just like to, or at least I would like to, make a comment that since that logging trail has been put in, we have had more people accessing that dashed blue trail area to the east, to the right up there, and coming down, and obviously the trail doesn't go anywhere to exit the park. It just stops. It's not a legitimate trail. It's just kind of a deer trail and where people used to walk through that area. So it's not part of the park trail per se. But they have been going up through the back behind the neighbors' lots on that logging trail, going to the east, and then to get out of the park, they've been coming through our yard. We live to the east of McGaw Park, so they're coming down through our yard. We would like to ask, Scott, that you put some kind of a sign there that says no outlet in this direction, so that they don't try to exit the park that way by coming through neighbors' yards.
In what we do have is we have park signs along we can certainly do that along the borders that kind of indicate where the private property begins and the public property starts.
Right, but they don't realize that there's private property there and no public exit from the park. There's nothing at that point in the trail. Say if you extend the pink one up to the blue line up there,
Right.
There'd be nothing there that would tell them they can't go to the right and exit. So just something that says
Sure.
no outlet or no exit
Sure,
from the park here.
sure.
Yeah.
Because right now, we've had people coming down into our property that came out of the park. And they're obviously walking on whatever trail they find. They do not see the park signs that indicate that the park ends there. And there's nothing else to indicate that they're walking on private property, other than a brush fence that I've put along there to give them indication that this is private property and it's not designed for people to exit the park. If you go to the east, the north, or if you go east and then go south, you run into private property. And the only way they exit is to go on private property. So if you have that extension go and you complete the loop, all we're asking is that you basically tell people to take a left where you complete the loop, and the only direction that they should go is west.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say?
Also, I think you received a letter from one of the neighbors that asked that the trees be removed. And she said that she was not necessarily opposed or perhaps even in favor of extending more walking paths for people through the park. But she doesn't like the idea of it being so close to the lot lines along the back of her lot, naturally, where the trees were taken down. So if that particular area could be somehow, I don't know, allowed to just go back to being a natural area and maybe move the pink one farther to, that would be the west, the left. We would support her in that.
I see.
That neighbor is Sheila Francosa, I believe.
Okay.
Also, yeah.
Francosa.
Okay.
Yeah, we support her in that.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, Patrick has collected registration forms, and these are people registering in opposition to this matter. Susan C. Hoffer, 2505 South Sain Road. Gary,
She has a written comment.
yeah. You want me to read
Yep.
all the written comments?
Every single one.
I have walked McGaw Park paths for 20 years, unless you've personally walked them. How can you decide what is the best course to take? People want a walk through the woods, or they wouldn't be there. Modify it slightly, don't destroy the experience. Gary Whitehead, 5203 Kitty Crest Drive. These are sufficient trails in the area that are not being maintained, and there is no need for additional trail close to the residences. Mariah Cheney, 5211 Kitty Crest Drive, just registering in opposition. Paul something on Irish Lane. Say, thank you, sorry. Registering in opposition to this.
Just a point on that, possibly Paul, since he's here, may have decided to speak. Question to Paul? No, does he registered?
No, wait, Patrick, okay. Right now, he's registered only in opposition of this
Yeah,
matter.
and he can change that if he wants.
Yes, I'm going to put that at the bottom of the pile.
Okay.
And I'm going to read the rest of
Okay.
these, okay? Someone, Seehofer, registering in opposition. Gerald, I see that now, Gerald, sorry.
Didn't he have a comment?
Registering in opposition.
Oh, okay.
Michaelia Cheney, registering in opposition. That's 5211 Kitty Crest. Betty Whited, 5203 Kitty Crest. There are numerous trails in that area already, no need for more. This one's blank. And that's blank. And so I just wanted to clarify, you don't need to speak, but Patrick thought you might want to. Oh, okay, please come on up. And we'll, like we did with the earlier group, we try to keep it to 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to keep my cool. I've been here for 65 years. A lot of you guys probably weren't even born then. But our parks back in the old days were community parks, where the neighborhood, that was their park. The park that I'm adjacent to is Greenfield. Now, if any of you want to go back in history, it was a community park, but we were such a small village, that's where all the fireworks were. And now it's, we went back to our neighborhood parks, but Fitchburg likes to make a lot of money, and they lease out the baseball fields. So all afternoon and at night, we have people from Oregon, Verona, Madison, McFarland, Cottage Grove playing baseball. So it was supposed to stay as a community park. But I'm in opposition of the McGaw trails. I and another guy, which is Patrick Cheney, we go walking through the woods. And what we have in McGaw Park is sufficient. So adding on is ridiculous, which would mean more people to hire to maintain it. And then, oh my gosh, if you start with a trail this big to walk in, you know what happens, don't you? Cut down trees and bushes and makes it 10 foot wide, so they can drive their parks machines through. And after that, well, they got to clean up the trees and stuff, and after a while, you lose the woods, because you have to After a while, you sit there and you can look right straight through the whole woods, you know, because you got to take down the brush, got to clean up the woods. And people don't want that. They want to be able to walk through woods. Where I live, the Parks Department and the city, they just hate trees. So if you go to the end of my property, I used to have oak trees all the way over to where the road was. Now, it's half of my property. And the first thing I've always asked is, what's wrong with the trees? Oh, we got to have more space. They're cutting down trees that takes two people to hug them. You'll never see them again. So when you add that on, next to all these people's, if I was there, I'd be up in front of your faces just screaming. I don't want no next to my lot line. I don't want people walking around all the time. You know, people live out here, and they get to a park like that. They want, you know, a little bit of security and a little bit of, you know, away from everybody. But if they go through with this, it won't be just a regular little trail. It's going to be a big one. And these people that live along there, and I've seen it in other parks, because I have 65 years of being here. The Parks Department gets, you give them this much, and sir, I'd sure like to see which park you have meadows and grasses. We have the most groomed golf courses for parkland than you'll ever see.
Okay, thanks. We're at 3 minutes.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I sent to the Parks Commissioners today was one more remark about McGaw Park Trail in email, so I'll read that. It says, hello, Park Commission. Thank you for your work on this committee. I'm writing today as a resident. Someone lives next to McGaw Park on McGaw Road. I would appreciate it if the paths were widened. They are too narrow right now. You can only walk single file on most of them. This prevents grass from growing on the trail because all the traffic walls in the same space. The trail also doesn't get enough sun and air without being groomed, so there is muddy areas because there's no air movement, and that is Aaron Richardson, signed Aaron Richardson, Fitchburg Mayor. Okay, so we're closing out our comment period?
Scott or you have to read all of the emails that were sent, which are public information, public input. We have received some of them on this commission, but the audience, the video, whatever, needs to have that in the record.
I don't know that we do.
Oh, yes. Just think of the council meetings, written emails and such that are sent in. The mayor at the council reads them all.
No, I don't think they do that anymore, do they?
No, he reads only, I think 5 of them, but only in support or against. He doesn't go in detail.
Yeah.
But we do that. We forgot to mention all the email that we got for the agenda item regarding the Stony Prairie Park. So we had to be consistent. So.
Well, just as an example, right here.
And typically for the comprehensive information like that, there needs to be a public records request. Otherwise, you do just sort of read a sampling. Otherwise, every meeting would literally go on for hours.
They actually can if there's a lot of people testimony, and they all deserve to be heard. And I will point out here that Scott did send 2 of them, I believe. One of them was, I think, on Monday, which you forwarded an email to us, but so that it's read into the record right here. It's from a Barb Johnston, and you stated in here, in that you wrote to us when you forwarded it to us, good morning, Barb and Dave. I will read your below email as part of the discussion under action item 5C, see attached agenda.
And what I did do is I followed up with them because they didn't include an address, because typically on the comment form you need to have an address. So I requested an address, and they never responded back to me. So I guess I don't feel that I need to read it.
That has not been required. There's been people here who did not give their address, and they were still recognized and read.
Now, let's rein this in. Everybody who's spoken tonight has provided an address, and we've read a sampling.
No, I was listening. They did not. Not everybody, no. But they still spoke.
We have the written record of
You-
everybody's.
Okay, the one that you just read from the mayor didn't include his address, and you
All right,
read it.
Patrick, you have to be the resident to run for office, and we're getting way out of control here. I would like for us to
What?
go ahead and just,
Okay, I want to clarify on the record, okay, Scott, did you forward every single email or correspondence that you received to the Park Commission members?
I did.
You did. For the record, on video, on camera, you said you forwarded every single one.
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay, and
For the record.
are you and/or the chair refusing to read the
I don't have them.
emails or letters that you received
Oh, wait,
here
oh,
at the
someone-
meeting?
Scott just put up my email on my thing. Did you?
What?
Well, thanks. Thank you, Scott.
There is no actual requirement that every email be read. That's why there is a public comment section, so people can come and speak. The emails are there so that the commission can in fact take them into account. People that did speak said their street address. They may not have said the number, but they did say I'm either on Cornelius or I'm on what street that I'm on. So there's no requirement that every email be read
I think
aloud.
every one of them needs to be acknowledged, and the standard in Fitchburg, I don't know about other cities or something.
all right, here's what we did.
To read every one.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to read every one. The prior groups that spoke have provided their addresses on these forms and stated, if not their house number, they stated their street. So that, we're putting this to rest, and now we're going to discuss.
Can you show me on Aaron Richardson's
No, we're
email
going
where
to-
his address is stated or such?
We're going to start discussing it. We're not going to talk about the mayor's address. He's a resident of the city.
Well, we happen to know him, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's
Okay.
other people that, they can be anywhere.
If you want to speak, you need to raise your hands, okay?
And really, on this topic, we're done. And if anyone is unhappy with what I am saying at this point, then I would suggest talk to the city administrator at some
And the
time.
city attorney.
Yeah, that'd be fine. So, Chris,
Okay, so for anybody who is curious, the path in question, the X's on the map are where the trees were removed. So a path had to be at a resident's request, and a path had to be created to get to those trees. The pink line is the path that was made because it was the least disturbance to the forest. So that was the path made. It's wide enough to get equipment through. It's probably 15 feet wide. It's fairly wide, and pretty destructive, as was necessary to get to the trees and get them out. And the reason we're discussing it as a path, it was made as an access route. The reason we're discussing it as a path is because it exists now, because it was created out of necessity, and it's maybe, what's the scale on this? It's maybe 50 feet from connecting to an existing path, making another circuit, eliminating a dead end, which, as we heard tonight, the dead ends can be problematic. So what we're proposing is extending the access road that was created to connect to an existing path to create a circuit, eliminating a dead end, adding another path, thus adding another path in this park, which is they're clearly a well-used park amenity. So we're proposing expanding it by give or take 50 feet and making it a permanent path. Where it exists right now nearest the property line, which according to this map, really only impacts one property substantially. I don't know how accurate that is. Maybe it impacts the property farther to the south as well. I can't speak to that. What we are discussing is leaving that as an existing path. The property owner most impacted, which is where the trees were taken down, has not expressed opposition to that path remaining. They were one of the emails we received. That property owner was neutral to in favor, I would say, my subjective opinion, of that path, so long as it be kept as interior to the park as possible, away from their property line, which I think everybody could agree is reasonable. That's what we're discussing. So, considering the fact that the single property owner that is actually most impacted by this is not opposed to it, I think that is a worthwhile fact to mention.
Thank you.
And also some clarification on what we're actually talking about here.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. It's simply that. Patrick?
That's not true, because the owner of that property, right to the east of those red circles right there, sent an email which Scott sent out to us. You didn't acknowledge that you have an email from her. You didn't read it. And she says she does not want this path. She opposes it. Read her email.
That's the email I was referencing.
You're misinterpreting it completely to the positive instead of she opposes it. She said so. She's the most affected, and she opposes it. She said she doesn't want people walking there, and so on. Read her email, which Scott forwarded to us.
If I'm reading the correct email, and you can correct me if I am not, because I don't know the name of this property owner. So if
Sheila Franzoso, she has her address.
Then I am. I will read. I agree that it would be nice to have a walking path that would be for all to enjoy, and I do hope the plan is still for it to be further back in the woods, and this area would be seeded over as previously planned.
Do you have a name on that one?
Yes.
What?
Sheila.
Sheila's.
Where does it say that?
So I would say that I am in complete agreement with the property owner adjacent.
Are you taking this like a paragraph or something out of the middle, out of context, or what?
Really? Really?
Yeah.
I have a printout of her email that you sent to us. That
And have read from her email, and we shouldn't try to add meaning to something, and she is not.
Well, that's what I think. I'm saying that's what Chris is doing and saying she's in favor or neutral. That is not what I read in there.
Those
Read
were her
the
words.
whole thing.
The
Scott, you have it. You forwarded it to us.
Scott, could you?
when I read it, I took it to mean that she was neutral to.
Well, I have the utmost confidence that Chris is reading the email as he received it.
I challenge it.
All right, we're here to we're talking about 50 feet expanding northward, and that's all we're talking about.
That's inaccurate.
I would like to move the motion.
Okay,
Second.
we shall.
The motion has been seconded. Can we vote, please?
Yes, we shall. The motion is to extend the path 50 feet, or the distance it takes to connect to create a circuit. And that's it.
If I could offer an amendment.
Yes, go ahead.
That the permanent path be situated as far from the property line as possible, and the space between the path and the property line be allowed to become revegetated.
Okay,
I will accept that amendment to my motion.
all right. Those in favor, as stated?
Roll call.
Aye.
Okay, roll call. Heidi Reynolds is aye.
I'm an aye.
Christopher Sinna?
Aye.
Julia Arata-Frada?
Aye.
Patrick?
No, with a strong comment that you didn't acknowledge all the input from the public on this.
Okay. The motion carries. Thank you. So, communications? Scott?
Discussion and action. We're Southdale Park. What I wanted to do is provide some additional. I think that was requested last month to provide some additional information, more clarification as far as what's being planned for Southdale Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I included the CIPs for, and it looks like we're looking to do a park sign in Southdale in 2023. along with redoing the basketball court. And that's in CIP 6259. And then in CIP 6266, which is new development, we look in 2024, there's Southdale Park additional playground, 60, Southdale Park additional shelter and restroom. But I will tell you that in the next agenda items, or one of the communications, is that we needed to adjust that CIP amount because certainly $75,000 isn't going to be enough to put a bathroom in there.
So one of the comment, can I clarify? One of the comment that the mayor did in the last head of the department committee was that most of the amounts that we have in the CIP plans, they need to be updated because some of them they're coming for 3 or 4 years and we need to adjust it by inflation. So we have to be more realistic. So when, so instead here we say $75,000, but maybe it could be $100,000, So I think this is something that we need to do, this exercise we need to do when we talk about the CIP for this department is to revise or increase all the fees, all the amounts, because they are not current.
Yeah. And something that I don't know if anybody had time to actually go through and walk around and look at that park, but it's got a lot of nice play equipment, and some of it's old, and I'm assuming Jordan goes to safety check like he always does to the equipment, but it needs a lot of love, the park does. The community garden is a nice space. Does look like it would get enough sun, but in the condition it's in, I don't know about how much interest would be generated in making use of it. And it would, I know, Scott, you said you had contact who had been planting in there and trying to watch over it, which is much appreciated. And maybe that person would have some ideas or would help with outreach to some of the apartment managers to see about a renaissance of that space. And it's, it's got a lot of stuff that needs to be cleared out of there. Question I have about the shelter and restroom idea is, and I'm not saying this because I oppose it, but is it warranted? I mean, I think we should make the case for an investment like that. And so we did have some data in here about population. This is such a different process. This park has arrived, and now we're sort of backfilling and cleaning up and doing things like that. So that's just a question I have, and it's true, $75,000 wouldn't do that. And then additionally, if you did have restrooms there, cost-wise, the closer to the street it is, the better off that's going to be because of the water and sewer that has to be run. The farther you go into the park, the more that costs, and the existing shelter is tucked in the back. And so when you start to talk about all these things, then we're saying we're planning improvements without a plan for the park. And I wonder whether this body could, that we're not creating a community park, we're not creating a new McKee Farms Park, but we should be able to come up with what the strengths and weaknesses are, what all the things should be, everything that should be handled. And another one that's of a big concern to me is the condition of the hill and the path that goes up the hill out to East Badger Road. It's a serpentine blacktop path that's probably going to need some repair, and I don't know, that's another expense. There's erosion that's going to probably take out a little piece of the path. I did meet someone there the other day who explained that that's the shortcut to get out to Badger Road to a bus stop. So You can see where people take shortcuts, and then other people have driven stakes into the earth to keep people from taking shortcuts, and then there's a sofa dumped in there. So we've got a lot of work. So if the commissioners will think about whether we can come up with a plan so that we justify the restroom for in a couple years.
You know, I have been in that park. So because of the location, it looked more like a pocket park than like an area park because it's surrounded by all the apartment complex.
Yeah.
So I don't think, maybe I am wrong, that that park needs restroom because most of the people are using the lift very close to. You know, it's a pocket park. You know what I mean? And the other thing I was thinking is, this is one. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't know, but I don't think that we need to do the restroom there. I will prefer to invest in a very good shelter. And the other thing, maybe we should send a survey to all these neighbors there and say, what do you like to see in this park? Like we do with all the, you know, because that one is another way to say, you know, we are here, we are new, your new city. We want your feedback. We want you to be part of this process. So we are involving, including them. So I would like, maybe we should do like a short survey with some of the neighbors there and say, hey, we have plans to redo this pocket park. How do you envision? What are your priorities? What you would like to see?
And in fairness to it, when we put the CIP together and those kinds of things, we were kind of shooting from the hip, if you would. Certainly, I think the idea of some kind of a master plan and all of those kinds of things that would really drive the CIP and what's needed would be a good, course of action. Certainly, I think with the number of residents that are in that area, the idea of a gathering place and all of those kinds of things. It is one of our healthy neighborhoods, so I would envision that being similar to, Hugo Jamestown or Nine Springs, where there could be a gathering place for all of the residents and activities and those kinds of things. But certainly, I think the idea of flushing out what the group is interested in would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Patrick, and then after Patrick speaks, then I see Heidi has comments too.
First, Scott, what is the classification for Southdale Park? Neighborhood, area, or community?
Well, that I think is I think that's yet to be determined, Patrick.
Okay.
I think I think this conversation right here is really kind of indicative of what kind of a park we see there or what we want it to be.
Yeah, because one of our classification system feature lists is neighborhood parks don't get a restroom.
Correct.
And when I saw 75,000 in here listed for
Yes.
an additional shelter, I thought that you'll never. I mean, are you missing a 100,000 in front of that? Because I remember there was some shelter that needed 75,000 to hook up the water.
We were just beginning to start to work on it.
All right. I do agree with Julie's point that when it's surrounded by apartments, probably all the people come out of those apartments to come to here. So, they have their own restroom.
Well, but I think it
very close by, hopefully.
Well, but at the end of the day, too, it can be a gathering place for day events and festivals or whatever it is for that specific
But
neighborhood.
It's still for that neighborhood, that's why I'm kind of thinking it's a neighborhood park. I do have a question. I did go look at the park, but there was snow on the ground. I did walk up the pathway, and I saw, that pathway up a very tall hill, 50 feet high or something, and then over to East Badger. That's got to be a critical path for them to reach East Badger Road. But I did not know about the community gardens, and it may have been buried in snow. Where is it?
When you're walking towards that hill.
Yeah.
And there's two paths to take you into the park, right and left.
Yeah, I walked on
straight,
both of them, yeah.
If you would have come up the left side, which is, I think, west, if I'm not turned around,
Well, we have a map on page 69.
then it's off to the side there.
Which side? West?
West. It's way west, and there's a green fence around it.
Okay.
And I might make a pitch, too. I sent the link to the Pictionary that Dakota put together, and it's all in there, so that
didn't, I tried to get on that. It didn't work for me.
it didn't.
Yeah.
I wrote you about that.
All right, on page 69, there's three separate maps, but the one on page 69 shows off to the left.
Center area, yeah.
But you can see that winding path, but go left of that, that box area, that's where the community garden is contained. It's a smaller section in the middle of all that, rectangular, it's got a garden shed. And it needs cleaning up, but there's running water there, and so it's very nice. It's and then just the other thing about the neighborhood in general, and I know, and Heidi is still waiting, but other thoughts I had, I just don't want to forget to mention that this is very isolated. So, as part of that Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative program, we can look at this park through a lot of different directions to come up with something that meets the needs. And then my final comment is that, Scott and I have talked, and others over time, of, Friends of Fitchburg Parks, and Julia knows about how much work that is, because she put a lot of work into the playground, the new playground at McGaw. But to me, this park seems like a natural fit, as there are some other projects too, but this is a natural fit for seeing if area businesses who are also now just new to Fitchburg with this incorporation into our boundaries, maybe we can make a case for some of them to come on board and help us plan. And Heidi, are you still there? Go ahead.
I am, and this is great conversation, and I agree with virtually everything that was said. What I would like to add just a little bit to what Julia had put through with regards to the survey. I would even like to see, maybe once the weather gets nicer, April, May, where we have sort of a park event. Maybe we hold one of our park commission meetings there and invite the neighbors, and we could do informal surveys then as well, or formal.
Okay. Any other comments about that? Okay. So,
Not about that, but,
yeah.
okay, I didn't have this map with me and didn't memorize it before I went there. And I, was not aware that way over to the west there was part of the park. I don't even remember looking over there. And I see way over, to the north of, there's three sections. One of them is just that very narrow north path. But then we got two sections there. The one that fronts out there on whatever street that is.
Yeah, and that's on page 70?
Yeah.
That's
right,
sort of
right.
like the flat, level playing area
Yes,
of the park.
right.
Yeah.
And then, so the center area is kind of the most interesting. Way off to the top and then to the right over there, is that just all woods? It's a strange thing that goes way off as a hook way up there behind apartments, I guess.
Yeah, that's a very bizarre lot configuration. I don't even know how you'd get in there if someone wanted to go in there and clean that up. I don't even know how you get in there.
Is Scott aware of any?
Well, that's on, I misspoke, on page 69, on the right-hand side of the page, there's this odd hook-shaped within the blue.
Yeah.
And that's very steep.
Yeah, it is? Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is or where it is or
Yeah.
what it has there.
So,
I wouldn't have known that was
That's
park either.
Yeah, that's a challenge. All of that's a challenge.
So that's a steep hillside.
Yeah.
Okay, because the switchback is part of the center outlined part also, and that's a steep hill.
Yep.
Okay. So Scott, is the part way off to the northeast there, is that pretty much useless?
I have not been out there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, never say never, but that, I guess if we're going to put priorities on things,
It looks like it's left over from apartment building
you just
parcels.
leave it. Yeah, probably. But I think whether or not we have a meeting where neighbors are invited, this is a good park for us in the nicer weather to all do a walkthrough. And if we do it together, that's fine, or in smaller groups, that's fine.
One other thing I noticed, I was impressed that they actually used the steep hill below the switchback there as a sledding toboggan hill.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of room to do that.
It's pretty steep.
Yeah.
I think they go up the path up at the top and then, probably leap off the the path there and come down the hill, and it's like a good 30-foot drop right there from that first switchback down to the bottom. It's
Now, where did you see
nice.
that they use it for sledding?
Yeah, because there was snow on the ground, and they were.
Oh, they were doing it, you observed people doing it, got
Oh,
it.
there was a lot of tracks going down the hill. They
I
used it
see,
a lot.
yeah.
So that was kind of impressive because we don't have that anywhere else in Fitchburg. There's a very small hill that I and my family have used in McGaw Park for sledding. That's the only one I know of.
There's not too many opportunities. And
Yeah,
Chris,
right. We
you
don't
wanted
have
to-
enough hills.
Oh, no, Chris, Scott, you wanted to say that. Okay. Okay, so that was a lot, and then Deanna Schmidt from our planning department put this census information together, and so the population from the census is 1,400 people, and but then on the graph underneath it, it says persons total 1,064. I don't know why the difference, and then just to remember, so a lot of times people don't answer census, but it gives percent breakdowns, which she recommended we look at percents of age groups, which gives us a little bit of a guideline to think about the park users.
What page is that? Or was that an email? I
That
saw it
was
somewhere.
in the notes, Scott's agenda comments to us.
It's on this? I know I saw it somewhere.
That it
Oh,
came
yeah,
in the
yeah, that's
emailed
what it is.
agenda comments.
Okay.
So, is that everything anyone wanted to say about the park?
Do we need to make a first decision of what classification, neighborhood area, or community park this is before we decide which list is appropriate?
I think before that, we want to figure out what the function's going to be.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got to figure
That'll
out our
help.
sequence here.
That'll help decide or drive what park classification it'll be.
And a lot of that should be, of course, neighbor input. Of course, if they ask for, a large shelter.
Well,
this-
the other thing I'll say about gathering input, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a small park. And if people say, we have to guide the questions so that the answers we get will be realistic to what we can actually do. And a lot of the play equipment that there is nice. They may say, we don't want mud in our goalie boxes for the soccer fields, There's a lot of legitimate things people can say, but we have to just make sure the questions we ask don't lead them to think that they'll be upset or disappointed.
Oh, well, based on way back in the beginning when I asked about the acreage of No Stone or Prairie, I mean, we do have criteria also on size where, I don't know the acreage here, but it's probably not big enough to qualify as a community park, so we probably are ruling that one out, and then whether it's neighborhood or community, we're probably deciding between those two.
That and area, yeah. And it's
What-
got sort of a special,
Yeah, neighborhood and area.
yeah. And part of the Healthy Neighborhoods program gives it some other ways for us to look at it too, I think. And we had some photos. Thank you for including those, Scott. I took a whole bunch more, and you'll be happy to know I didn't send them to you.
Thank you.
But, some of this equipment, is now some of it's dated, but some of it's not old, and none of it,
Well, and here's actually a water feature.
yeah, that's really cool. There's 2 of those.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, those are little sprinkler head things, and it's a
Here's
20-second,
I wonder who's taking that picture.
who is that? But that's at the top of that part of the path is where that path is coming apart of there, and Joran's been plowing, or someone from the group, so they kind of know the condition too.
So they have their own splash pad?
They have 2 devices.
That's a spray
That's
amenity.
one of them. It's a spray thing, and you see on the bottom part, there's a round silver disc. When you push that, water sprays out of the nozzles at the top for 20 seconds.
Okay, and it's not surrounded by mud, so,
Right?
No,
Well,
we got to put some concrete around it. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
well, it looks like there's grass around it right now. It
Actually,
looks pretty
it's
nice.
doing all right. Water the grass.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I think they turned it off because it was getting.
Oh, you mean not functional?
No. They turned it off because they didn't want. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's something to investigate.
Yes.
But there's 2 of those. And the company that makes them is still in business. I checked that out.
Well, here you go.
Okay,
We good?
are we done? Yep.
And then communication. Communication items. And I wanted to kind of give you a heads up that we'll we'll discuss this as part of the agenda next month, but to Julia's point, beginning to start to go through and make some adjustments to the, to the dollar amounts. Path lighting, we switched from 10 to 15 in this one, and then kind of all completed.
Which pages or project numbers are you looking at? We got to follow along.
Well, I'm just kind of rolling.
Well, don't roll so fast.
So, page 81 and 82?
What, you want to go back to 81, 82?
No, I'm sorry, that's just, he asked page numbers, is that where? Okay, you were further along.
Yep, 84, which is,
Oh, wait, no, 80, page 82, I have a question.
fire away.
How soon, wait a minute, page 82. McGaw Park, how soon can I start denouncing 2024 new volleyball post $10,000 levy move from CIP, blah, blah, whatever? Because you guys keep pushing it off every single year, and this is the time, this is the last
All right,
year, this
he's
is the
answering
last
your
minute.
question, so let him answer your question.
Actually, we reallocated it, so it went to a different account.
Where does it say that?
Here, see my cursor?
It says move to SIP 6259.
See it?
Oh, so the funding is coming from a different place, but you're still proposing
We're
this for
trying-
2024.
We're trying to move it around so you can't find it.
Oh, I'll find it. I've been on that thing for 5 years.
I know you are.
Yep. And
So
so have you,
McKee?
you've seen it
McKee?
on site.
McKee really
How
is-
soon, my question is, how soon can I start denouncing it?
Well,
All
we're,
right, that's,
Next meeting?
that's next month.
Be prepared.
Next month.
okay.
So Marine Edge Park, that's kind of off for a while. Reoccurring park system improvements.
You skipped on by McKee?
Yeah, there's nothing on McKee.
Okay.
That's all reallocated to a different one. Reoccurring park system improvements. That's really kind of a checklist of the things that we're working on and getting done and taken care of. And we did, in 2024 for the Hugo James path lighting, per Julia's recommendation, we wanted to do a little bit of an update on that price. And then they keep on that CIP a list of all the previously funded projects, but those are all, we're doing a good job of getting them completed. Here's the tennis court pickleball improvements. And you can see that with the McGaw pickleball court, 2046, what the mayor has done with the idea that we're going to be replacing the pickleball courts in 2046. So what he's done is he's allocated an annual amount so that when we get to 2046, we're going to have enough money to redo them. That's on page in 62, 63.
Oh, and the highlighted one is for the tennis courts.
Well, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do the same thing for the
For-
McKee tennis courts.
So it's, okay, tennis
So we'll
courts,
add-
pickleball,
We're going to
okay.
have to add 20,000 to that 1940. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
have enough dollars.
Right, these big ticket items that you don't,
So
that you're
there'll-
ready.
There'll be enough dollars in there potentially to repair them when they come due to be fixed.
Yeah, I saw that, and that surprised me because the CIP is 10 years out, front 5 years, back 5 years. This is 25 years out.
Well, and again, I
To
think
replace something that was built 2 years ago?
What's that?
It was built 2 years ago, and it's already planned to be replaced.
In 2046,
Well-
in 25, 30 years. Yeah, absolutely, we got a plan, Patrick. So it isn't all one big thing at the, and then here, 62, 64, a large shelter. What we did do for Tower Hill was at 250, but we increased that to 325. And then for the siding at McKee, we actually got an estimate, and we had to raise that from 75 to 125. And these will all come for approval next. Southdale additional shelter and restroom, we had at 75, so we put it to 400. If that's what we're really intending to do. The Dunn's Marsh, and again, anything that's more than 5 years out, then they're just kind of a placeholder, they're just sitting there. The hub, not really much with that.
What page or project number are you on currently?
6276 on page 103.
Oh, okay, back up several.
Which one?
6266 on what I think was page 91. I saw on here 2027, which is
2027?
the year 2027, which is 3-4 years out. It says McGaw Park, Fahey Fields. There is no Fahey Fields. It's McGaw Park. 4 pickleball courts and pass system. That has not been requested or proposed anywhere yet, has it? I mean, they got 8.
2027, where?
Project 6266.
Oh, 62, I was at 6264.
New Park Developments revised.
I don't see 6266. What page is that?
I have the page.
6266, yep. New developments.
Yeah.
2027, yeah, I think that's about that time it's going to be ready to do that.
Well, that's in question. I mean, who has said we need 4 more in order to plan for it? You. Okay.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a good night. Appreciate it. So that's staff recommendation.
Yeah, that needs to be discussed or decided or something.
Well, this is a prelude to that discussion next week, or next month. Community tree gravel beds.
Do you think you could maybe announce the project number page that you're running through so we can keep up?
Yeah, the 6276 community tree gravel beds.
What page, do you know? Then I'll,
That's 103.
okay, thank you.
There's nothing changed on that one. 6277 Kids Crossing Playground, and I think you kind of allocated a little bit, or discussed this, that we're thinking 750, but 375 is going to have to come from donations. So that would be a good reason to have Friends of Fitchburg Park, so they can kind of be the fundraising arm of the park system.
Right.
Well, then, so that's the capital improvements. Tree preservation ordinance, I wanted to report that, well, we didn't meet on the committee of the whole on the 22nd, but staff is continuing to work through it, and actually the planning department, because it will be an ordinance, they're working on some drafts to that ordinance, so it continues to be worked on. Clayton Road Park project, update on that. I shipped out the survey. We got 4 proposals, so I shipped that out to the neighbors, and we'll get some tallies, and then come back to the park commission. And well, what I'll do, bids are due on the 27th. Yeah, I'll put the survey together. And then what I'll do is I'll actually put together the referral and resolution for the March 28th with the result of the survey, and then it'll come to the park commission for your approval. So I'll go ahead and kind of recommend what the survey indicates. You know, instead of coming to the park commission and say, hey, I kind of assuming that you'll go with what the neighbors are thinking.
I have several questions on that.
Yes.
Okay. This is on the playground equipment for
Clayton Road.
Okay. First thing there, why didn't this come before us to review before it was sent out for bids, in case we had any comments or questions or wanted to make any revisions on this? According to the timetable on here, this has already gone out. The bids have already been collected on February 22. Today is March 2nd. So you already have the bids.
We do have the bids, yeah.
but they're not in this packet, and we haven't heard of this until right now. Why didn't we see this before you sent out requests for bids?
Well, and if you remember, you approved the CIP, this was part of the CIP, so this was a project for 2023. So I guess I went ahead and began to start to get the project completed, so.
And it's a neighborhood park, correct?
It's a neighborhood
So
park,
it's
yep.
pretty,
It's just a replacement of an existing low,
Yeah.
old playground.
Well, maybe so, but it would be nice to run it by us first for comments or such, or say, yes, all right, go ahead. The next question on this, I read through this whole thing right here. This is playground equipment, and I don't see a dollar figure anywhere in here. So is this using our system that we've been using recently for parks all over that says, okay, we will spend up to $40,000 or sometimes $60,000. Give us a bid on what you can do and what it would cost, and then some of the bidders figure, hey, you got $40,000, we'll tell you what we'll do for $40,000. Others figure, maybe we can get in a little bit lower, like $100 less or even $1,000 less, and then they bid low, but that has been irrelevant in the process we've been using. So this doesn't give any dollar figure at all. And so are they, you already have the bids, but we don't have a chance to see them
I
here.
didn't
Did they bid high, low, what, I mean?
I didn't include the whole RFP in the package. I just included the cover page and the
I
request.
don't really want to see the whole RFP, but
Well, that has a budget amount of
depending on the bids that
$40,000.
you've already received, I mean,
could you give me, the budget amount is what?
$40,000.
40, so we're at
but it
40.
doesn't say that here anywhere, does it?
Well, like I said, I didn't include the whole RFP. I just wanted to give you a heads up that RFP is out there, and it'll be coming back to you, like we've done with other playground replacements.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, because what you're saying is you did specify to the potential bidders, vendors, that we've got a $40,000 budget for this, right?
Correct.
Okay, and was it clear, because of what I just said about some bidders come in $100 less, and they figure they're going to beat the other ones, like an auction, you got to be $1 over or $1 under or something like that, or $1,000, and then that's been irrelevant, so they kind of hurt themselves. Is this being phrased, because I haven't seen this away so far, that we are going to spend $40,000 unless you want to, knock off a few dollars, but don't count on us even considering that. It's like much more like, show us what you can do for $40,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
But is it phrased like that to them? Because they seem to think it's a bid, low bid wins.
No, it's a.
But then that's been irrelevant to us. We picked the best one, so some of them may be hurting themselves by trying to come in a little bit low. Maybe they knock something off of their equipment and come in $1,000 less, figuring they'll get it because we're looking for a low bid, and that's not what we do for playground equipment. That's the kind of things I would have possibly questioned if we had seen this before it went out for bid.
Well, yeah, actually, I did include some additional, if you
What
look
page?
at, maybe page 108 will help you.
Okay.
Selection procedure. The selection will be based upon the written proposals, and factors to be used for selection will be creativity, ability to meet
Don't have that.
CPS guidelines, number of play components, ability to meet established budgeted amount, performance records, references, ability to compete, work within established time frame, and neighborhood vote. So those are the criteria that the contractor is aware of that we utilize to select the proposal.
Yeah, I read through that one too, and I still didn't see a dollar figure. So
All
that's
right,
why I'm
we-
questioning it.
Okay, and
Well, like I
that's
say, I
appreciated, but
didn't include the whole
we're replacing
old
some
RFP,
playground
and it is
equipment.
40,000.
Yeah, we're replacing some playground equipment to not exceed $40,000. It's,
Right, which we've done for,
that's been done before.
That's my point. That's the way we've been doing it recently, but this one didn't look like that.
Oh.
And it seems misleading to bidders, the way that I read this right here in our packet.
Well, we'll see what we get. Either
Well,
they're happy.
Scott has
either
it
they're-
already.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
we've got 4 proposals.
Okay.
We're in good shape.
All right. Community garden form. We're at community garden.
That was painful. Well, we're working on the community gardens. Actually, I've got a Google, the rec department helped me do a Google survey to determine who's coming back, so that'll be the first step. And then we do have additional gardeners who want to garden, so we'll work to find a plot for them, and then the next thing will be, we'll send out a Google to see if they want their they're plot tilled or not, and we'll be off and running.
What about Southdale? That's not on here.
I'll work with Southdale, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're renting out the plots in Southdale. That's part of Fitchburg now, right?
Well, Southdale right now is in really bad condition.
Well, and it's an independent group, so I'm working with them independently. These are just for our
Yeah.
existing ones that we have at Briarwood,
The ones that.
Hugo Jamestown, Core Hill, and Swan
Is it
Creek.
the rec department that manages these community gardens for rentals and whatever?
I do that.
You
I
do that,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So
My
you
department
are
helped me-
not,
Helped me put together this Google survey.
Yeah,
you
I
are
mean,
not managing Southdale?
in future years, there might be more to manage there, but right now, it looks like out of all that beautiful garden space, 1 or 2 people were making use of it. And because people come and go, move and et cetera, I think Scott had said about, he has the contact of the person who has taken care of it, and this year is just to learn and see if we can generate interest and get it cleaned up and all that stuff.
Right. Okay, that's all I have for communication.
Okay. Staff reports and updates.
I have a question since it's, communication.
Oh, go ahead.
Just to hit this, the McKee and I presume the Hugo Jamestown ice skating ponds are done for the year, right?
Correct.
Okay, and since I asked you about it some weeks ago, the water garden hose was shut off at the McKee pond, and I know what day it was shut off. I hope that I helped on making that request to get it shut off because the water was just running down the drain. I will note for the record, for your information, if you haven't seen it, the water continued to run off the drain. Then the water level dropped by a 1/4 inch, and then it filled up again. And even currently, with rain and snow melting, the water is it's actually refilling higher and going over the drain. So that garden hose should have been shut off a lot earlier.
Okay.
And the ice even froze around the drain, so otherwise the garden hose keeps it melted.
Okay.
Okay.
Staff reports, we have. Are there questions on the staff reports? Is anything, Scott, you'd like to
Well,
tell us
I
about
definitely
them?
want to, call attention to the Gold Leaf. Is it the Gold Leaf? The ISA Gold Leaf Award that was received by Anna and her team at Chicory Meadows. They did some work there, they did some clearing and some plantings and a bench and all those kinds of things. So I definitely wanted to draw attention to that work.
That was a lot of work, and it's very nice.
Yeah, really nice.
I guess I have a question about one of the reports, really related to the tree advisory minutes that are in here. And I see there's a paragraph in here on desirable trees, and I was wondering if that is like the idea that we only supposedly I think it's right there, isn't it?
On page 115.
Yeah, right there, that
that's-
paragraph.
That's a sampling of the tree protection ordinance that they're working on with the city attorney and Deanna
Right.
Schmidt.
But I'm questioning, is that the only trees that we like in the city?
No.
It seems a very limited list.
Well, Chris probably can fill in the blanks, but what I've gleaned from going to the committee meetings is that these are listed specifically because this is a communication between the city and developers. And they're going to be asked to identify what's on their parcel as they bring their first plat to the planning commission. So these are the species that they want, that they need to tell us that if they're there, where they are, and measure the diameter.
I see.
Other trees have value, but these are ones specifically that they're asking about. Does
Okay,
that sound
so-
fair, Chris?
Yeah, I would say they look like they're all natives, so if they're native and on an undeveloped plot, they're more likely to be substantial, and, I assume that's probably why they have that list.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a notification you're saying to developers that we want to know if you've got any of these trees, we want to hear about it right away.
Right.
Because I can think of a bunch more trees that are desirable, and even trees that we purchase and plant that are not in this list. I thought, does this mean we're only buying and planting these, but it's kind of a different.
Yeah, right, it's a whole different
Okay.
thing. And it doesn't mean that if there's a beautiful specimen of one of these smack in the middle of their lot, that they have to put their building around it. It's just that they're identified, and then that's a communication between the developer, the city staff, and the plan commission.
Okay.
I mean, we're not going to say you have 48 trees, so you can't build on your lot. It's just to be able to have a conversation. Any other questions?
Nope.
Scott, did you have more you wanted to say? Okay. So we're at motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, 8:38. Those in favor of adjournment?
I have 8:42.
Yes, you're right.
That clock is off.
All right,
Mine is set to NIST.
8:42 on the computer. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody want to hang around? All right, thank you, everybody.